At the wedding rehearsal, Zayn Hill's adopted sister suddenly started retching. In a panic, he carried her to the hospital. Half an hour later, the phone rang. "She's pregnant." I was about to say congratulations when his voice turned eerily calm. "It's mine." That night she broke up, shivering from the rain and cold. I just held her to keep her warm. Never thought, "We have to keep this from Mom and Dad. I'll take her home to take care of her, and we'll talk after the baby is born. Let's postpone the wedding for a year. You go explain and apologize to the guests." My throat tightened, unable to utter a single word. He continued, "By the way, you should resign immediately. Mengqing needs someone to take care of her. Nothing unexpected can happen in these few months." I suddenly laughed. "All right." He hung up the phone, satisfied. But he didn't know that I had made a bet with that person. If I didn't get married before turning 30, I would marry him. And today happens to be my 30th birthday. Perhaps my calmness was too unusual. Zayn called back just 3 seconds after hanging up. "Rose Lane, I'm sorry, I was wrong in this matter. But believe me, I only see Mengqing as a sister. The child was truly an accident." I chuckled self-deprecatingly. "Ah, such deep sibling love, keeping each other warm all the way to bed. How touching." There was a noticeable pause on the other end of the line, followed by his helpless sigh. "If you're angry, I understand. You can scold me or hit me, but Mengqing is still in school, unmarried and pregnant, yet unable to say who the father is. She's an orphan, even though my parents adopted her and treated her as their own. Something like this Hill family would never accept. They'd surely kick her out. So I hope you can claim the child as your own. Since you've quit your job and are staying home, no one would doubt it's not yours." Tilting my head back to hold back the heat in my eyes, I spoke hoarsely. "Zayn, let's not get married, not get married." He fell silent for a few seconds before suddenly roaring, "Rose, aren't you tired of this? Wasn't it you who said we've been together for 5 years and kept pushing me to hurry up with the wedding? Now the whole circle knows you're my Zayn's fiancé. Do you think marriage is a game? Rose, when did you become so capricious?" I can imagine his furrowed brows at this moment, and sure enough, the next second I heard him threaten, "Miss Lane, I'm asking you one last time. Do you really not want to go through with this marriage?" My fingers clenched the phone tightly as I smiled bitterly. "Yes, I don't want you anymore, Zayn." He let out a cold laugh. "I'm not in the mood for your games. Do as you please." The phone was slammed down hard. I stood in the center of the banquet hall, and under the astonished gazes of everyone, I tore off my veil and ran out. Hill parents quickly blocked my path. Hill father taking the initiative. "Rose, what madness is this? Just because Zayn took his sister to the hospital, you would ruin this wedding, make hundreds of guests laugh at our Hill family." Hill mother snorted and retorted, "I've said all along it wasn't suitable. The Hills come from generations of scholarly families, while the Lanes are merely upstarts, a complete mismatch in social status." But Zayn insisted, and I couldn't dissuade him. "See what happened today. It became a complete farce." Hill father sneered. Fine, maybe it's better not to marry, so her temper won't offend people later and ruin the Hill family's reputation." Clearly, it was Zayn who was in the wrong first, yet these two are blaming me instead. I clenched the veil, my fingertips trembling. The wedding was cancelled by Zayn. As for the reason, you two should ask him. I find it humiliating, hearing that this was Zayn's idea. They became even more self-righteous. Even if Zanua's the one who cancelled, you just ran off without a word as the bride. Shouldn't you apologize in front of everyone? How did your parents raise you? You don't even understand the most basic social etiquette. How can you be the daughter-in-law of our Hill family? I took a deep breath. I won't be marrying into the Hill family. If you two have nothing else, please step aside. Their expressions changed abruptly. Clearly not expecting someone as usually lane-compliant as me to be so firm, I ignored them and walked straight past towards the dressing room. Hill's mother shouted furiously behind me, "You ill-mannered brat!" In the dressing room, someone was already waiting there. The fitted athletic wear accentuated his broad shoulders and long legs, with sunlight casting from the side, outlining a sharp silhouette. The dark circles under his eyes betrayed him. He probably hadn't slept well. When he saw me enter, he straightened up with arms crossed, that familiar, punch-worthy smirk playing at the corners of his lips. I turned my face away. Didn't someone swear they'd never attend my wedding? He suddenly leaned in, Lane's warm breath brushing past my ear. The moment our eyes met, I suddenly saw that stubborn boy from 10 years ago. Rose, a bet is a bet. I pressed my lips together without saying a word. He grew anxious instantly. Have you forgotten? I don't care. We're getting married in 3 days. If you don't show up, he paused, as if steeling himself, I'll go to Lane's house to be their live-in son-in-law. Having said that, as if afraid to hear my refusal, he quickly slipped out the door. I suddenly burst out laughing. This fool, of course I remember the bet. Our families have been close friends for generations, and we grew up together since childhood, being so familiar with each other. How could we possibly become lovers? 10 years ago. He confessed his feelings to me, and I said we should just stay friends. He looked hurt and insisted on making a bet with me. I never expected that. In the end, I would still lose. Just after changing out of my wedding dress, Zane sent me a photo. All my belongings were piled up like trash at the villa's entrance. The most glaring was the wedding quilt my mother had painstakingly sewn by hand, carelessly stuffed into a transparent plastic bag. Its bright red satin surface stinging my eyes under the sunlight. Come and take them away immediately, then I'll have Aunt Jong throw it away. I stared at the screen, my fingertips turning cold. He knew exactly how to manipulate me. Other things I could let go, but the wedding quilt had to be retrieved. Fine, I'll come. That quilt took my mother 3 months to make. Her fingers, unaccustomed to needlework, were pricked full of blood spots. On the eve of my wedding, she still managed to smile as she tucked the quilt into my hands. Daughter, may you be happy for a lifetime. But when I arrived, the doorway was empty. Just half an hour. I clearly said I would come. Was he so impatient to kick me out? Anger surged up in an instant, and I pushed open the villa door and rushed in. The moment I pushed the door, I felt like falling into an ice cave. Hil Mengqing sat on the edge of the dining table. Zane held her waist with both hands, pressing his cheek against her slightly swollen belly. His eyes lay tender to the point of being dazzling. Brother, Hil Mengqing suddenly whispered. The baby kicked me. Zane immediately pressed closer, the corners of his lips curling into a smile I'd never seen before, so mischievous, just like you when you were little. When he looked up, his gaze was so soft it could melt. I hope the eyes will be like yours too. Hil Mengqing smiled with pursed lips. Zane skillfully planted a kiss on her lips, his tone suddenly turning remorseful. Are you really determined to leave after giving birth? Actually, you could stay. I can take care of you and the child. How can such a young child be without their birth mother? Hil Mengqing extended her index finger to press against his lips and shook her head. Brother, if I don't leave. What about sister-in-law? Upon hearing the word sister-in-law, Zane clearly froze for a moment before his expression darkened. Talking about breaking up now is just throwing a tantrum. Once the baby is born, she'll be begging me to come back and help raise it. A merchant's daughter like her only cares about profit. What dignity does she even have? Have you forgotten how she was practically throwing herself at me to be my girlfriend back then? That disgusting face of hers still makes me sick to think about. My tears fell silently. So the confession I mustered up the courage to make all those years ago had disgusted him for so long. Hil family is the foremost calligraphy lineage in Sioux City. Zane is the youngest renowned calligrapher in Sioux City. 5 years ago, he came to my father with handwritten works seeking investment for the GU Family Academy. My father praised him endlessly and specially introduced him to me. I fell in love with him at first sight and stubbornly insisted on learning calligraphy from him. He pointed at me angrily and scolded, "Stupid, utterly talentless." I grinned cheekily. "Then be my boyfriend." Perfect compliment. Right. He glanced at Hil Mengqing, who was bowing her head writing, then suddenly grabbed my hand and laughed self-deprecatingly. Fine. Overjoyed, I jumped up to hug him, completely missing Hil Mengqing's fleeing figure and his instantly stiffened arms. Only now do I realize that his heart has always been filled with Hil Mengqing. No wonder he later refused to teach me calligraphy and wouldn't even let me enter his study. My heart ached with bitterness. I wanted to turn and leave immediately, but then I remembered the wedding quilt my mother had sewn. It couldn't be abandoned, Rose. Zayn suddenly turned his head, curling his lips in mockery. What are you doing lurking at the door? I've already thrown all your things out, having regrets now. I clenched my fists tightly. Where's my wedding quilt? Give it back to me. He froze for a moment, his expression turning even colder. A tattered quilt? Why would I care about that? My mother sewed it with her own hands. My voice began to tremble. Give it back, and I'll leave right away, seeing me on the verge of tears. He frowned. You're crying. Are you crazy? Is it really that serious? Of course, I shouted, tears finally falling. Zayn tugged at his bow tie irritably. Hesitating to speak, beside them, Hil Mengqing suddenly seemed to remember something and hurriedly said, Sister-in-law, don't shout at brother anymore. I was the one who had the servants put your things in the guest room. She spoke while gently stroking her belly with her fingers, tears instantly welling up in her eyes. Sister-in-law, can you please not move out? If it's because of this baby, I can get rid of it. His arrival was a mistake from the start. None of you wanted him. Before she could finish, she was already sobbing uncontrollably. I won't allow it. Zayn's voice was almost out of control, trembling as he tightly embraced Hil Mengqing, then turned to glare at me fiercely. Let her leave if she wants, but she'd better not lay a finger on my child, right now. You and the child are my everything. Rose, if this is why you came, get the hell out of here. I let out a cold laugh and walked straight to the guest room. The embroidered wedding quilt was carelessly thrown on the floor, stained with dirt and vomit, its once beautiful phoenix and dragon embroidery now filthy and ruined. With trembling fingers, I pointed at the quilt. Hil Mengqing, explain this. She timidly shrank her neck. I didn't mean to. I just suddenly felt sick. As she spoke, she bent down to pick it up. Sister-in-law, please don't be angry. I'll wash it clean for you. But as soon as she bent over, she cried out in pain. Ah. My stomach hurts so much. Zayn suddenly rushed over and pushed me to the ground. My head slammed hard against the bedpost, and at the moment the excruciating pain exploded. Lane warm liquid trickled down my temple. I bit my lip without making a sound, just smiling at Zayn. Trying to see if he had any heart at all, he held Hil Mengqing tightly, his cold hill eyes filled with utter disgust. How much? I'll pay. I beg you, stop making trouble. Does tormenting me and Mengqing with such trivial things give you a sense of achievement? It felt like a hole had been punched through my chest. He used to treat me with indifference, but never looked at me with such eyes before. He must despise me now. Suddenly, it all felt utterly meaningless. Why should I stay here and annoy him further? I gave in. The wedding quilt is soiled. I don't want it anymore. I don't want this dirty man anymore. I struggled to stand up. Zayn, I'm not short of money. As I turned to leave, he suddenly grabbed me, looking somewhat helpless. You're in a bad mood today. Go back to Lane's place and take a few days to calm down. I'll come pick you up in 3 days. I shook off his hand and quickly walked away. This home we've built over the years, I was merely a passerby after all. Lane home. I've already explained the wedding fiasco clearly to my parents. Seeing me return, Mom let out a long sigh of relief. Daughter, I should be thanking heaven and earth. What would you have done if this was discovered after marriage? The Hills always look down on us merchants for being money grubbers, yet their so-called scholarly family raised such a shameless thing. Father sighed lightly. Let's not talk about this anymore. Our daughter is hurting. I've already instructed my assistant to withdraw all investments from the GU Family Academy. From now on, our Lane family will have nothing to do with the Hills. I was hesitating whether to bring up Jiang Lin when Mother suddenly said, by the way, Jiang Lin came by today. He even brought the betrothal gifts. She took a velvet box from the coffee table drawer. This child moves quickly indeed. Opening the box revealed a pair of heirloom jade bracelets inside. Only then did I truly realize that Jiang Lin was serious about the wedding 3 days later. Night fell. Hil Mengqing sent me a message. Sister-in-law, please come back. I'll move out right away, and I won't take the child either. You and my brother have 5 years of love. It shouldn't be ruined because of me. I would feel guilty for the rest of my life if that happened. I stared at the screen with a cold smile. If she wanted to make a scene, she could go find her brother. Why bother me? I replied with 2 words, suit yourself. Then, without hesitation, I blocked her. After doing all this, I leaned against the floor-to-ceiling window, lost in thought, feeling a lingering sense of melancholy. The phone suddenly vibrated, and Jiang Lin's video call popped up. Rose, his eyes sparkled on the screen. "Give me a heart gesture." I froze. "Why so sudden? A heart? How cheesy." "I don't care," he said playfully, leaning closer to the camera. "I want it now." Amused by his childish expression, I reluctantly made a quick heart gesture with my hands, immediately giving myself goosebumps. He instantly clutched his chest and closed his eyes, making an exaggerated expression of bliss. When he opened them again, he suddenly winked at me with his right eye. My heart skipped a beat. "Look outside, your return gift," he chuckled softly to remind me. And the video abruptly ended. The night sky outside suddenly lit up. Hundreds of drones formed a flickering heart, which then transformed into a line of text. "Rose, happy birthday." Tears instantly blurred my vision. Today's commotion made me forget even my own birthday. Yet he remembered. Though a bit cheesy, I could feel his sincerity, and I loved it. As for Zayn, every year on my birthday, he would simply pick up a pen and write "Happy Birthday," never even bothering to include my name. "My calligraphy has collectible value," he'd explain each time. "If I wrote your name on it, no one would want to collect it." This year, he simply said, "Too busy preparing for the wedding to write anything." But this so-called wedding preparation, I tried on wedding dresses at over 20 stores all by myself. I compared more than 30 price quotes to book the venue. I stayed up late handwriting over 300 invitation letters. The only time he participated was when he reluctantly spared 5 minutes during my final dress fitting, yet spent the entire time checking his watch. It turns out he never loved me. The signs were always there. My heart suddenly clenched, and I quickly tilted my head back, blinking my eyes. I've already shed too many tears today, at least on my birthday. I need to preserve the last shred of dignity for myself. In my sleep, my phone vibrated, and I groggily pressed the answer button. Zayn's voice roared through. "Rose, get to the hospital right now. Meng Qing is in trouble." I was instantly wide awake. Was the message she sent serious after all? Without even changing my clothes, I rushed out the door in my pajamas and slippers. When I rushed to the ward, I saw Meng Qing leaning comfortably against the headboard, while Zayn was laying gently peeling an apple for her. The two of them looked perfectly at peace, while I stood there with one foot half slipped out of my slipper, looking like a clown. When I appeared, Zayn suddenly stood up violently, yanking me to the bedside. "Kneel down to Meng Qing." I looked up in shock, but before I could react, a heavy kick landed behind my knees. My knee slammed hard onto the ground, the excruciating pain leaving me momentarily immobilized. "Zayn, are you insane?" I glared at him fiercely. Terrifying fury churned in his eyes. Meng Qing slit her wrists. She almost died with the unborn child. "Don't talk to me about insanity. I really want to kill you right now." Meng Qing chose that moment to burst into sobs. "Brother, I texted sister-in-law to apologize, but she blocked me. She must hate me to death. She never wants to see me again. What's the point of me living? Though I detest her, I don't want blood on my hands." I quickly looked up to examine her. There was a half-centimeter-long wound on her wrist, treated with iodine, already scabbed over. Is this what they call a suicide attempt by wrist cutting? A wave of sorrow washed over me, and I forced a bitter smile. "Zayn, if I come tomorrow, will her wounds have healed by then?" He instantly bristled with anger. "Rose, how could you be so vicious? If I hadn't noticed in time. Do you know what could happen to a pregnant woman who loses too much blood? This is probably what they mean by the more you care, the more you panic." A minor wound threw him into disarray, while the blood streaming from my forehead went completely unnoticed by him. He must be deeply in love with Meng Qing. My heart sank as if weighed down by a stone. Frowning, I remained silent. This seemed to infuriate him completely. He threw a fruit knife at me and said fiercely, "Since you think it doesn't matter, then make the same wound and taste the pain yourself. This is what you owe Meng Qing." Staring at him in disbelief. This was the man I had loved wholeheartedly for 5 years. In that instant, my heart turned completely cold. Wasn't it just a cut? I could simply return it to her, right? Lowering my gaze to hide the tears in my eyes, I picked up the knife and made a light slash across my wrist. Meng-Ching let out a terrified scream. Struggling to my feet, I held my hand up to Zane's face. Enough. Blood kept dripping down. His eyelashes fluttered rapidly as he cast a disdainful glance, then turned around to comfort the startled Meng-Ching, muttering curses under his breath. Who told you to cut so deep? You're hopelessly stupid. I smiled silently. Staggering to the door, he suddenly threw out a sentence. Rose, reflect on yourself at Lane's place. I'll come pick you up in 3 days. I laughed until tears streamed down my face. Zane, we shall never meet again. Zane has been utterly exhausted these past few days, had to take care of Meng-Ching who could have an emergency at any moment. He had to find ways to hide his affair with Meng-Ching from his parents. The most troublesome issue was that the Lane family withdrew their investment, causing the Hill family's cash flow to break, and the planned new branch hospital was halted and shelved. He had intended to confront Rose about what happened, but every time he recalled Rose's utterly dejected smile in the hospital, he hesitated again. A voice in my heart says, this time he really went too far. Rose probably hasn't cooled off yet. If I go to her now, she'll definitely take the opportunity to make him grovel and apologize. That's absolutely impossible. I must leave her hanging for a few days, otherwise she'll start pushing her luck in the future. Brother. Meng-Ching leaned weakly against the headboard, her face pale as paper after vomiting. Aren't you supposed to pick up sister-in-law today? Zane casually curled the corner of his mouth. No rush. He knew Rose too well. Even if he didn't pick her up today, she would eventually come back on her own. Just like every Cold War in the past. It was always her who gave in first. Upon hearing this, Meng-Ching's eyes lit up, and a faint flush actually appeared on her pale cheeks. At that moment, Hill's mother suddenly called, Zane, Lane's family has sent an invitation. They're getting married today. Getting married? Zane tightened his grip on the phone abruptly. With whom? He had said the wedding would be postponed for a year. How could she? Who else could she marry besides him? After a brief moment of panic, he quickly regained his composure. Mom, she's just throwing a tantrum, playing a prank. Don't take it seriously. Hill's mother grew anxious. I've sent you the photos of the bridal procession, along with the wedding address. Go check it out. If she dares to betray you and rush into marriage, I won't let the Lane family off the hook. I'll turn their lives upside down. Zane's fingers trembled as he opened the photos. On the screen, the bridal procession fleet, composed of globally limited edition pink phantoms, was particularly glaring. Rose stood by the car in a white veil, holding a bouquet of flowers with a radiant smile. The phone clattered to the ground with a sharp thud. Her heart felt as if an invisible hand had clenched it tightly, making breathing suddenly difficult. Brother, Meng-Ching tugged at his sleeve worriedly. You look terrible. Are you okay? Zane shook his head blankly, his lips pressed into a tight line. Sis-in-law must be teasing you. Meng-Ching chuckled softly. She loves you so much. How could she marry someone else? All these years, I've never seen her with another man. There's no way she'd have a whirlwind marriage. Unable to make out what she was saying, Zane stood frozen in place, feeling utterly at a loss for the first time. Suddenly, he grabbed his phone and dialed Rose's number. Hello, the number you dialed cannot be reached for the moment. The mechanical female voice felt like a bucket of ice water poured over his head, his hands trembling. He opened WeChat only to find he had already been blocked. Rose, how dare you? Zane hurled his phone against the wall in a fit of rage, the screen shattering instantly. He turned and was about to storm out the door. Meng-Ching suddenly grabbed the hem of his shirt, her face deathly pale. Brother, I feel sick again. Could you buy me some oranges? A surge of inexplicable fury flared up in his chest. Zane violently shook off her hand. Your sister-in-law is about to marry someone else, and you expect me to have the mood to buy you oranges? Will you die if you don't eat oranges? Meng-Ching staggered from the push, tears instantly welling up. It's the baby who wants to eat them. I don't want to either. She pretended to faint. Zane but coldly sidestepped to avoid her. So annoying. Cry all you want at home. The moment he slammed the door shut, he loosened the suffocatingly tight tie around his neck. No matter whether Rose is really getting married today, he must bring her back. How could she? How dare she marry someone else? Jiang Lin chose an ancient church as the wedding venue, the very place where we made our bet years ago. Before the ceremony, he quietly leaned in and whispered smugly in my ear, "You know what? Back then after you made the bet and walked away, I immediately knelt before the statue of Jesus and prayed for victory. See, it worked." I turned my face away. Childish. He laughed like a child who'd won candy. "Who cares? It's the first time I've ever won a bet against you since we were kids. I'll take childish as a compliment." The priest's deep voice resonated. "Mr. Jiang Lin, do you take Rose to be your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do." Jiang Lin's voice trembled with excitement, his hand shaking slightly as he held mine. "Miss Rose, do you take?" "She doesn't." The church doors suddenly burst open. Zane's figure rushed in swiftly. His eyes were bloodshot, his voice hoarse. "Rose, come with me." The entire hall erupted in uproar. Before anyone could react, he had already dashed to the altar, about to grab my wrist. Jiang Lin pushed Zane away in one swift motion, pulling me protectively into his embrace. Zane stared fixedly at Jiang Lin's arm wrapped around my waist, his voice suddenly rising sharply. "Rose, where did you find this actor? Is he overacting, really thinking he's the groom? You can exit the stage now." Jiang Lin raised an eyebrow and pulled me closer into his embrace. Zane's eyes burned with even greater fury. "I'll say it one more time, I'm Rose's fiancé. I told you to get lost, understand?" Jiang Lin scoffed, his fist already clenched tight. I gently held his hand, signaling that I would handle it. "Zane," I looked straight into his eyes. "Wasn't I clear enough 3 days ago? Our engagement has been called off. Today is my wedding with Jiang Lin. I don't want to make a scene and disrupt the ceremony. Please leave now." Zane was visibly stunned, his expression gradually darkening. "Just to spite me, you'd marry someone in a flash marriage. You've always acted without thinking. But this time you've really gone too far." He gritted his teeth and softened his tone. "It's not too late to turn back now. I can forgive your willfulness." Before I could respond, he suddenly turned to the whispering guests and bowed gracefully. "Please forgive us, everyone. My fiancé is throwing a childish tantrum, which led to today's farcical wedding. Let's all disperse for now." The guests exchanged glances. Everyone present were Lane family and Jiang family's relatives and friends. How could they possibly leave just because of his words? I never expected Zane to be this shameless, still thinking I'm just throwing a tantrum at this point. What right does he have to ruin Jiang Lin's and my wedding? Thinking about how Jiang Lin stayed up several nights in a row for this wedding, just to make sure everything didn't seem rushed, a surge of inexplicable fury shot straight to my head. I raised my hand and slapped Zane hard across the face. Unable to contain my roar any longer. "Zane, are you out of your mind? This is my wedding with Jiang Lin. What right do you have to steal the spotlight and send away our guests?" "I'm not throwing a tantrum, it's over between us, completely over. Do you finally understand? You say I'm not thinking straight, but what about you? Are you even more foolish than I am? Please, for the sake of preserving some dignity in our breakup, get out of my wedding right now. I never want to see you again in this lifetime." Perhaps having never seen me in such a hysterical state before, Zane covered his face and froze in shock. His voice was hoarse as he said, "But I never agreed to cancel the engagement. I only asked you to go back to the Lane family to cool off for a few days. How can you just cut off so many years of feelings between us? Rose, do you even have a heart?" I let out a cold laugh. "I don't have a heart. You got Hilmingqing pregnant, flirted with her right in front of me, and even wanted me to be a substitute mother, playing me for a fool. And you have the nerve to ask if I have a heart." His eyes reddened. "Mengqing and I are like siblings. It's not the kind of relationship you're imagining. The child was just an accident and won't affect our relationship. The one I love is you, and that will never change." I sneered inwardly. His mouth says he loves me, but his body is honestly drawn to Hil Mengqing. Not wanting to waste any more words on him, I turned to the priest and said, "Please proceed with the ceremony." Jiang Lin immediately signaled his bodyguards to step forward. As the 2 bodyguards closed in, Zane suddenly rushed over, trying to pull me away. Scumbag. Still refusing to repent even now, Jiang Lin finally couldn't take it anymore and delivered a fierce punch to Zane's face. Before he could react, Another kick sent him sprawling to the ground. Zayn clumsily rolled off the stage, unable to get up for a long time. As the bodyguards dragged him away, he kept turning back to look at me. Tears mixed with blood on his face as he forced a smile uglier than a grimace. Just as they dragged him to the church entrance, they encountered the furious Father Hill. Father Hill raised his hand and delivered a heavy slap, cursing angrily. "You beast!" Zayn was taken away by Hill's father, and the wedding continued. When the priest announced we were now husband and wife, Jiang Lin pulled me into a tight embrace, his scorching palm pressed against my back. His burning gaze seeming to brand me into his eyes. "May I?" Before I could react, his kiss had already descended. Unlike the usual restraint, this kiss carried a declaration of ownership. Yet Lane was so tender it made one's heart tremble. The guest seats erupted in enthusiastic applause and whistles. As if the earlier farce had never happened, during the group photo, Mom suddenly leaned over, waving her phone with a sly smile. "Sweetheart, I just sent the video of you scolding Zayn to the Hill family group chat. After the siblings pulled such a disgraceful stunt, let's see how they can hold their heads up in their circle." Dad burst into laughter. Old Hill cares most about face. This time he'll probably break his son's legs. I looked up and exchanged a smile with Jiang Lin. The photographer clicked the shutter at that very moment, capturing everyone's genuine, radiant smiles in the photo. The gloom that had weighed on my heart these past days finally lifted like mist in the sun. Hill family's old house. Zayn knelt rigidly. Hill Mengqing sat beside him with hunched shoulders, her face pale. Slap. Hill's father swung the thick family discipline rod and struck Zayn heavily on the back. 1, 2, 3. Zayn suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and collapsed forward. Hill's mother kept wiping her tears on the side, but dared not step forward due to Hill father's stern Hill gaze. Hill father turned to Hill Mengqing, his voice as cold as ice. "We adopted you from the orphanage and treated you as our own daughter. How could you do such a thing with your brother? You've disgraced the Hill family. Tomorrow, go to the hospital and abort the child, then we'll send you abroad. You're not allowed to return for 10 years. Hill Mengqing immediately crawled forward on her knees 2 steps, kowtowing incessantly. "Dad, I beg you, the child is innocent. Could you please let me give birth to him? I've loved my brother since childhood, but I knew Hill family would never agree to us being together. This is my and his baby, also the Hill family's eldest grandson. Please let me give birth to him." "Okay." Hill's mother finally couldn't hold back and whispered in persuasion. "How about we just let them be? I've watched Mengqing grow up and know her well. After all, she's an adopted daughter without blood ties. There's no need to forcibly separate them." Hill father's expression softened slightly as he prodded the prone Zayn with the discipline rod. "And you, what do you have to say?" Zayn struggled to lift his head, blood still trickling from his lips. "I only ever saw Mengqing as a sister, you beast." Old Hill's eyes burned crimson as the rod came down relentlessly. "A sister? Then how the hell could you lay hands on her? Does the Hill family lack women for you? I don't care what you think. You'll get the marriage license tomorrow. No wedding ceremony. The Hill family can't afford this disgrace." Hill Mengqing, with tearful eyes, reached out to grab Zayn's hand. "Brother, we can finally be together. Get away from me." Zayn pushed her away with all his strength. "Dad, I've told you. I only see her as a sister. The one I will marry is Rose. If you insist on me marrying Mengqing, then just kill me today." Hill Mengqing trembled all over. "That night. Didn't you say you wanted me to follow you? You were the one who fucking seduced me that night." Zayn suddenly erupted. "If you hadn't taken off your clothes and pressed yourself against me, how could?" Hill Mengqing, "It's all your fault. Otherwise, why would Rose have rejected me, you bastard?" Hill's father grabbed the family discipline rod and struck down indiscriminately, until Zana collapsed to the ground vomiting blood. Hill Mengqing cried until she fainted. Amid the wailing sirens of the ambulance, the medical staff carried out 2 stretchers. Zayn had 3 broken ribs. Hill Mengqing was wearing an oxygen mask. A month had passed by the time we returned from our honeymoon. Work had piled up like a mountain, and I worked late into the night. Waiting for Jiang Lin to pick me up, stepping out of the office building, the cold winter wind hit me in the face. Zayn was leaning against the doorway smoking. When he saw me come out, He immediately stubbed out his cigarette and hurried over. Rose, his voice was slightly hoarse. Before I could react, he pulled me into a tight embrace. I'm sorry, forgive me, okay. His arms tightened around me, as if trying to press me into his very bones. I've thought of you every day this past month. I can't take it anymore. I could feel his tears soaking through my shoulder. This man, who had always been so composed and restrained, was now holding me and crying like a lost child. I can't live without you. For you, I endured my father's discipline, and went to find you as soon as I left the hospital, but Lane's family had security drive me away, so I could only wait here. His tears were scalding, but my heart remained calm. I know I was wrong. Truly I do. He cupped my face, his voice trembling. I won't marry Hill Mengqing. She seduced me, and I don't want the child either. Finally, in the softest Lane tone, he said, Rose, could you divorce that man? Let's start over. I rolled my eyes and pushed him away forcefully. Stop sniveling in front of me. I'm not buying it. Zane's face instantly turned deathly pale, his wounded expression painfully obvious under the streetlight. I let out a cold laugh, playing the devoted lover now. A little too late for that. I intended to leave outright, but suddenly wanted him to taste the heartbreak I felt that day when I heard Hill Mengqing was pregnant. I curled the corner of my lips and looked straight into his eyes. I'm pregnant, and it's Jiang Lin's child. Deliberately pausing for a moment. If we start over, would you be willing to acknowledge this child? His pupils contracted sharply, and he staggered, bracing himself against the wall. After a long while, he finally spoke in a hoarse voice. Rose, for you, I'm willing to be this child's father. Dream on. Jiang Lin's voice suddenly came from behind. He strode forward, pulling me into his arms right in front of Zane, a mocking smile playing on his lips. Zane, you're like a piece of sticky plaster that just won't come off, aren't you? Make my wife divorce me. Play daddy to my child. He looked Zane up and down contemptuously. You think you're worthy, you. The usually aloof calligraphy master Zane had never been humiliated like this before, momentarily left speechless. I awkwardly cleared my throat. Jiang Lin suddenly scooped me up in his arms, his tone Lane dripping with tenderness. Don't stand too long when you're pregnant. Then he gritted his teeth and whispered in my ear, he hugged you just now. The tips of my ears instantly burned. Jiang Lin was actually jealous. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught sight of Zane standing frozen in place, his face etched with bitterness. I casually tossed out, Zane, I was just teasing you earlier, don't take it seriously. Jiang Lin shot him a frosty glance before smugly scooping me into his arms and carrying me to the car. As the car started, the rearview mirror suddenly caught Hill Mengqing's frantic figure. She screamed and lunged at Zane. Why don't you want me? I hate you. Zane's back visibly hunched over. I averted my gaze and turned to the sulking person beside me, pinching his cheek lightly. Mr. Liu, if you keep frowning like that, I'm going to get angry, he sighed helplessly. Then suddenly cupped the back of my head and kissed me hard. Now, are you still angry? Later, from my parents' gossip, I learned that Hill Mengqing stabbed Zane multiple times that night. Seeing him lying in a pool of blood, she cried her heart out, then turned and slit her own wrist. In the end, Hill Mengqing couldn't be saved and passed away with her unborn child. Zane, though he survived, he was completely broken. He drank heavily every day, lost his senses, and eventually became a homeless wanderer. The day I heard the news, I dug out all the birthday gifts he had given me over the years. For calligraphic works of happy birthday fetched astronomical prices at the auction house, as expected of Master Gu, the great calligrapher's final work. Just as he said, unsigned pieces are indeed more valuable. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, so feel free to share your opinions, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more great stories. We'll see you in the next video.